Those of you that understand the prophecies of the Bible know that the Bible prophesies for the very near future one world government, one world religion, and one world economy. The 13th chapter of Revelation is devoted to this prophecy, these three prophecies actually, but they're really all in one. This will be the government of the Antichrist and his religious partner, the false prophet. So, three components: a political union, a religious union, and an economic union. Well, we want to talk today about the economic union because the one world economy is actually going to become the enforcement mechanism for the one world government and the one world religion. What do I mean by that? Well, already it's happening because let's just say the United Nations was a one world government, which it was designed to be. It's not fully there yet, but it's getting close. So let's just say that a nation decides not to abide by a ruling of the United Nations. Well, the UN now has to force that nation to obey if we're going to have a bona fide functioning one world governmental system, which many people want and many of us don't want. Nevertheless, in order to force everyone to abide by this one world government and all of its edicts, there has to be an enforcement mechanism. Well, right now the enforcement is, if you don't do what we say, we will levy economic sanctions against you. That means no one will buy your goods, no one will sell goods to you. We're going to put you under economic blockade. We've been using this now for some time against different countries, in particular Iran, up until recently when most of the trade sanctions were lifted. But we've used this against Iran to force Iran to the table. Then we let them up probably too quick before Iran actually signed an agreement. Now there's all kinds of threats to use economic pressure against Israel to withdraw from the West Bank and to do what the world community thinks that it should do. The point is, economic pressures, economic control is used to force obedience to the United Nations, which is actually a world government in the making. Okay. Now, the news is out now that President Obama is negotiating a huge trade deal, the biggest one the world has ever known. It will encompass 40% of the world's economy in one deal, and power over that whole situation will be put in the hands of a trade commission. We will have an equal vote with the smallest country on earth. So we're moving right now into a trade bill where all parties involved will be equal, whether you've got a population of 1 million or 300 million. Everybody will have one vote once this is all implemented. It's going to be socialism on steroids, you might be able to say. Well, Mr. Jeff Sessions, senator from Alabama, doesn't like the way this is being done because nobody knows what's in the bill, even though President Obama is asking the Congress to give him fast-track authority to implement it. It's another one of those deals like Obamacare. Well, vote on it and then we'll let you read it. That's sort of what's happening here to an extent anyway. Let me just give you some of the article that I've taken this from. The article's entitled Exclusive: Sessions to Obama. Why are you keeping Obama trade's new global governance secret? Now, this is from a U.S. Senator to the President of the United States. Senator Jeff Sessions, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee's Subcommittee on Immigration and the National Interest, has written a scathing new letter to President Barack Obama, pressuring him to explain why Obama trade has been so secretive. Now remember, The Bible prophesies a one world economy. Don't forget that. Now then, Senator Sessions is saying, what's the deal here, Mr. President? Why all the secrecy? Well, the article goes on to say, on May the 6th of this year, I sent you a letter. This is actually a copy of Senator Sessions' letter. I sent you a letter regarding your request for Congress to grant you fast-track executive authority. Sessions wrote to Obama on Friday. Under fast track, Congress transfers its authority to the executive and agrees to give up several of its most basic powers. These concessions include the power to write legislation, number one, the power to amend legislation, 3, the power to fully consider legislation on the floor, 4, the power to keep debate open until Senate closure is invoked, 5, and the constitutional requirement that treaties receive a 2/3 vote. So this fast-track authority will take all those powers away from Congress and say, Mr. President, you're now dictator in this situation. We're giving you our powers. Even though the Constitution of the United States requires a 2/3 vote approval by the Senate for every treaty, yet we're pretty sure we can't get the 2/3 vote, and the powers that be want this bill, and therefore we've got to find a way to circumvent the Constitution so that we can in fact have this bill that we're wanting, because we want we really believe that the real problems of the world are over political conflicts, religious conflicts, and economic conflicts. So if we can move toward a system of global governance, if we through ecumenism and interfaithism can bring all the religions of the world together, and if we can then bring together the nations of the world into a one world economy, then we would have removed the sources of conflict in the world, and we can hopefully have peace on earth, goodwill toward men. Now, it sounds pretty good. However, according to the prophecies of the Bible, it's going to have an absolutely terrible ending. I'll tell you more about that later. Okay, so fast-track authority, handing to President Obama the power to write legislation, the power to bring the legislation before the Congress for a mere simple majority vote instead of the 2/3 required by the Constitution to pass a treaty. How do you do this? Well, you just say this is not a treaty, this is a bill. Well, it sure sounds like a treaty. Isn't there something like, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, and quacks like a duck, that it really is a duck? Well, this is a treaty, ladies and gentlemen. But in order to get it passed, they want to go around the requirement which they can never achieve, and that is a 2/3 vote in the Senate. Now, the letter goes on to say, it is especially important since, having been to the closed room to review the secret text of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, that's the name of the treaty, it is clear that it more closely resembles a treaty than a trade deal. In other words, through fast track, Congress would be pre-clearing a political and economic union before a word of that arrangement has been made available to a single private citizen. Now, there is a room so that the members of Congress can go in this room and look at the bill, the deal. So some of the members of Congress have gone in, including Senator Sessions. Let me make sure that we fully understand. Having been to the closed room to review the secret text of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, it is clear that it more closely resembles a treaty than a trade deal. So in other words, we're going to try to shove through under the nose of the public a treaty that will bring us into a pact with 40% of the world's economy, place it under an international control where they're making the rules and we agreed to abide by them. And all this is being done before the people get to know what we're doing. Is anybody hearing me today? There's too much of this going on. We had this with Obamacare. They give us this big bill and insist on voting on it within 24 hours. And Nancy Pelosi said, well, vote on it and then you can know what's in it. I mean, democracy? The United States of America? What's going on here? Well, that's what's going on. I'm telling you right now. Now, let's go on. The letter hones in on the new global governance, as Sessions called it, that would be created by the Trans-Pacific Partnership, referred to as TPP, which would almost certainly be approved by Congress should the House of Representatives vote in favor of Trade Promotion Authority to fast-track TPP and other trade deals. TPA, which passed the Senate a couple of weeks ago, would ensure, barring some unforeseen development, the congressional approval of TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and collectively the two have become known as Obama Trade. The letter, which received no reply, asked several fundamental questions Congress ought to have answered before even considering whether to grant the executive such broad new powers, Sessions wrote to Obama on Friday, referencing his previous letter. Among those, I ask that you make public the section of the TPP that creates a new transnational governance structure known as the Trans-Pacific Partnership Commission. The details of this new governance commission are extremely broad and have the earmarks of a nascent European Union with many similarities.